Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be simplifying radical expressions. Before we do, we need to talk a little bit about perfect squares. So in the table below, it says complete the table to generate the first 15 perfect squares. Use a calculator to find the ones you don't already know. So please pause the video at this time, fill in the table with all the perfect squares that you know, and then use the calculator to find the ones you don't. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. This was 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, 196, and 225. Now, knowing our perfect squares can help us simplify radicals. So look at example 2. It says use the chart above to help you simplify each of the following. In problem A, we have 3 times the square root of 49. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace square root of 49 with parentheses. And then you're going to go to the chart and ask yourself, what is the square root of 49? And it is 7. And then you just simplify 3 times 7, which is 21. Now, you can also check yourself on your calculator. I've got a Desmos calculator open, but you can use any calculator here. 3 square root 49, hit enter, and you can see our answer is 21. All right. Problem B, we have -5 and then parenthesis. Now find 196 on your chart. The square root of 196 is 14. -5 times 14 is -70. The next one, we have a minus square root of 225. So I'll replace that square root 225 with parentheses. Go to your chart and notice square root of 225 is 15. And so 8 minus 15 gives us -7. Our last one, we have 2 square roots to simplify. So square root of 169 is 13. Square root of 121 is 11. And then find the sum of 13 plus 11, which would give us 24. Now, a square root radical expression is in simplified form when the radicand in other words, that is the number under the square root symbol. Those are our radicands. A square root radical expression is considered to be simplified when the radicand has no perfect square factors other than 1. All right. So if I give you something like in this box, square root of 12, square root of 12 is not in simplest form, and it must be simplified. Let me explain what I mean. Square root of 12 is not in simplest form because the factors of 12, other than 1, are 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and then 12. And notice that 4 is a perfect square. So if there's a perfect square factor, then square root of 12 is not in simplest form. Okay, so the reason, because 4 is a perfect square. Now, something like square root of 10, that would be in simplest form because the factors of 10 are 2, 5, and 10. And none of these factors are perfect squares. 2 is not a perfect square, 5 is not a perfect square, 10 is not a perfect square. So the square root of 10 would be said to be in simplest form, and you cannot simplify it further. So in example 3, I'm going to give you some radicals, and I'm going to ask you to determine whether it's simplified or not simplified. All right, so in example 3, it says list the factors for each of the following and then determine whether it's in simplest form. Justify your answer. So for square root 18, what you're going to do is list the factors. So I could do 2 times 9, 3 times 6, and I think that's it. All right, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. So you want to look for those and ask yourself, is 2 a perfect square? No. Is 9 a perfect square? Yes. Is 3 a perfect square? No. Is 6 a perfect square? So is this simplified? No. And the reason is no, because 9 is a perfect square factor of 18. Okay? All right, square root of 15. The factors of 15 are simply 3 times 5. Is 3 a perfect square? No. Is 5 a perfect square? No. So this is yes, it is simplified because there are no perfect square factors of 15. All right, let's talk about 32. Let's see, for 32, we could do 2 times 16. Let's see, 3 won't go in. 4 times 8. 5 won't go in. 6. I think that's it. All right. So is square root of 32 simplified? Well, ask yourself, are any of those factors perfect squares? Well, in fact, there are 2 perfect square factors. So I'm going to say no, because 4 and 16 are perfect square factors of 32. So it is not simplified. All right, square root 45. Pause the video and try this problem on your own. All right, welcome back. For the factors of 45, I put 3 times 15 and 5 times 9. And then I noticed that there was a perfect square factor of 9. So I'm going to say no, because 9 is a perfect square factor of 45. Now, in our next example, we're going to be talking about how to simplify a radical expression. So there's 3 steps. The first thing you do is you find the largest perfect square factor of the radicand. Then you rewrite the expressions as the product of the perfect square and its factor. And step 3, you take the square root of the perfect square. So in our last example, we were talking about the square root of 45, and we said that 9 is a perfect square factor. So if I wanted to simplify square root of 45, I could rewrite that as the square root of 9 times 5. So I'm going to bring that square root of 9 out to the side. And then our last step is step 3, take the square root of the perfect square. So the square root of 9 is 3. So my final answer is 3 times the square root of 5. And now it's in simplified form. Now you can check your answer by taking square root 45, get a decimal approximation, and then 3 square root 5. So make sure the decimal approximations are the same. That's how you'll know if you're doing the problems correctly. All right. Now I'm going to be using a Desmos calculator on the next set of problems to help us generate a list of factors, but you can also do this process on any graphing calculator. All right, so in example 4, it says simplify each of the following. Now, what I'm going to do to simplify square root of 48 is I'm going to make a table to generate the factors. So the way you do that is you type in the number, the radicand, which is 48, divided by x, and then you have your calculator make a table. So I've got 48 over x in there. I'm going to press the wrench button and press the table button. All right, now we don't need negatives here because we're going to start with 2, and then I'm going to go up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm just going to go, I think, to 15, 13, 14, 15. All right, now what you do now is everything that's not a decimal is a factor of 48. So you're going to list those here. So 2 times 24, 3 times 16, 4 times 12. 5 is not a factor because that gives a decimal. 6 times 8. 7 is not a factor. And then we have 8 times 6. Once you get to a repeater, you're done. There are no more factors. Then what you do is you highlight any perfect squares. So I have a 16 and a 4. So those are our two perfect square factors, all right? Now, to simplify square root 48, you want the largest perfect square factor. So I'm going to use 16 and 3. So I'm going to rewrite this expression as square root 16 times square root 3. And then I will take the square root of the perfect square. So square root of 16 is 4. Square root 3 will not simplify. So this would be your final answer. All right, next problem. We have square root of 72. So this time our radicand is 72. So I'm going to change this to 72 divided by x. All right, now I'll write down my factors of 72. 2 times 36. 3 times 24. 4 times 18. Let's see. 6 times 12. 8 times 9. And then 9 times 8. So I came to a repeater, so I know this is all my factors. Now I want to look through there, and I'm going to highlight my perfect squares. 36 is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square. 9 is a perfect square. Now, of those perfect squares, you want the largest one. So I'm going to take square root 36 times square root 2. So I'll rewrite square root 72 as square root 36 times square root 2. And that would leave me 6 square root 2. All right, problem C. We have square root of 125. So let me change that. 125 divided by x. All right, so 2 is not a factor, 3 is not a factor, 4 is not a factor, 5 is not a factor. Well, it looks like our only factors here are 5 times 25. So here's our perfect square, 25. So I'm going to rewrite this as square root 25 times square root 5. Now, the square root of 25 is 5, and square root 5 will not simplify. So the square root of 125 simplifies to 5 times the square root of 5. All right, next one, square root of 300 over x. So 300 over x. All right, so 2 times 150. 3 times 100. 4 times 75. 5 times 60. 6 times 50. 10 times 30. 12 times 25. 15 times 20. Ooh, I wonder if there's any more. I'll keep going here. 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. 20 and 15 we already have listed, so we came to our repeater. So that means we're done. So let's highlight the perfect squares. Let's see. 100 is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square. Those are the only two perfect squares I see. So we want the largest one. So I'm going to use 3 and 100. So this would be rewritten as square root 100 times square root 3. And that would be 10 square root 3. All right. Next one. Oops. I want to change this to 184 divided by x. That'll give me my list of factors. So 2 times 92 will give us 184. 4 times 46. 8 times 23. And I don't see anything else. So then I look and see which ones of these are perfect squares. The only one I'm seeing is a 4. So this would be square root 4 times square root 46. So that would simplify to 2 times the square root of 46. square root 32. Pause the video and try this problem on your own. All right, welcome back. Hopefully the first thing you did was make a list of your factors. 2 times 16, 4 times 8, and that looks like all. There were 2 perfect squares, but the largest one was 16. So square root 16 times square root 2 would be 4 square root 2. All right, problem G. We have 5 times the square root of 32. Now, we've already simplified square root of 32. So I know that square root 32 simplifies to 4 square root of 2. So I'm going to put 5 times 4 square root 2 because we already simplified square root 2. And then you're just going to distribute. 5 times 4 gives you 20 square root 2. So that would be your final answer. All right. Problem H. Have we done 147 yet? Nope. Okay, so we want to simplify 4 times the square root of 147. So I'm going to come over here, change this to 147 divided by x. All right, so 3 times 49, 7 times 21, and I'm going to bet that is all. Okay, so there's my factors of 147. The only perfect square we have there is 49. So this would be 4 times square root 49 times square root 3. So this would be 4 times square root 49 is 7, and then square root 3 will not simplify. So 4 times 7 gives us 28 square root 3. All right, pause the video and try problem I on your own. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. First thing I did was I got my factors of 96, and they were 2 times 48, 3 times 32, 4 times 24, 6 times 16, 8 times 12, and then 12 8. So then I looked for my perfect squares, and the only one I'm seeing is 4 and 16, so I'll use the larger one. So this would be 3 times, and for square root 96, I'll use square root 16 times square root 6. So 3 times square root of 16 is 4, and then square root 6 will not simplify. So 3 times 4 gives me 12 square root 6. And that concludes today's lesson, Simplifying Radicals.